Yeah, cool. Yeah, that works. We can start.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rishika, and I, along with my group members Aditya, Parth, and Prashant, would like to present you our machine learning final project, patient monitoring using activity recognition. The main goal of any activity recognition is to recognize the patterns from the data frames of the videos and correctly tag them to the corresponding activities. There are several reasons why we wanted to implement this project. There are many such medical centers where 24/7 medical attention outside of emergency isn't available. So lack of monitoring causes health complications due to delayed response from the medics. Having a nurse is expensive, and our project would help the patients who cannot afford that service. Our app not only just classifies the activities performed by the patients, but it also notifies the medical authorities of any emergencies. It also releases a final report for the activities performed by the patient. The data we wanted to use is obscure, and hence we had to generate synthetic data using Unity 3D. This data was sent to the media pipe, which is a wrapper to the Blaze Pose model, which gives us the key point of the skeletal features of the person in the frame. The CNN LSTM model was trained on these key points, and the results were evaluated. Once the model was tested several times and gave good results, we finalized it. So this is what our application workflow looks like. The user would upload a video to the UI, which would send the frames from this video to the MediaPipe model. The CNN LSTM model then fetches the features and detected key points, classifies the activities, and sends back the tagged frames to the UI to display it. This will be explained in detail in later sections. Speaking about our data pre-processing, we collected several characters from Mixamo by Adobe and imported them to Unity 3D to generate the simulations through a script. For the key point extraction part, we used MediaPipe. Now, Prashant would like to talk more about dataset simulation.
So as Rishika explained that we generated these simulations in Unity. So these are the generated simulations. This is what pain simulation is. This is a setting simulation. And then we have this sleeping simulation. We take this from different angles to train our model. So these are just few of the examples. And moving to the next slide. So after these simulations are generated, we pass them frame by frame to our MediaPipe framework to get 33 key points, which are displayed in this diagram. And these are basically three-dimensional coordinates, X, Y, and Z. Additional to that, we also calculate 19 distances between certain selected key points, like the examples are nose to wrist and hip to ankle and hip to wrist. So these distances, along with those 33 key points, make up a total of 118 dimensional feature vector for each frame that we pass on to the model. And the backbone of our model is basically LSTM, that's for long short-term memory. So what are LSTM? So these are basically a special kind of RNN which are designed to handle sequential data, and they are capable of learning long-term dependencies. And the key to LSTM is basically the cell state, the top horizontal line that you see in the diagram. So the cell state gives the model longer memory of past events, and we update it in the subsequent layers. And another state is the hidden state, which is basically the working memory capability that carries information from immediately previous events, and it overrides at every step. And this change is done through these concept of gates. And we have this first sigmoid layer, which is a forget gate, followed by sigmoid and tanh, which acts as an update gate. And all the updation, we filter it through a combination of sigmoid and tanh and pass it to the next layer. So yeah, and now Parth will take you through the CNN LSTM architecture.
So we have used CNN LSTM for our project, which is a special kind of LSTM consisting of CNN layers for feature extraction on input data combined with LSTMs to support sequence prediction. CNN LSTMs were developed for visual time series prediction problems and the application of generalizing textual descriptions from sequence of images. They work particularly well for activity, image, and video recognition. In terms of model architecture and input, as we know that LSTMs take three-dimensional data in which the dimensions are samples, time steps, and features. CNN LSTMs take four-dimensional data in which the dimensions are samples, n steps, n length, and features, where n steps means the number of steps we want to divide a time step in, and n length means the length of the time step after dividing it in steps. So basically, n steps multiplied by n length is equal to time steps. This is the network architecture that we have used to train our model. As you can see, we have two time distributed con 1D layers, followed by time distributed max pooling 1D and flattened layers, followed by 4 LSTM layers of 100 units each and dropout layers with 0.5% drop rate. Finally, we have two dense layers which shape the output to 6, which is the number of activities we want to classify. These are the model performance graphs. On the left, we have the model accuracy. As we can see that the training accuracy is consistently increasing, and as for validation accuracy, except for epoch number 4, it is quite consistent at around 75 to 80%. On the right, we have model loss. Here we can see as well that the training loss is consistently decreasing, and as for the validation loss, except for epoch number 4, it is consistent at around 1. And here is a sample result video for testing our model. And as you can see, our model is correctly predicting the standing activity. Next, we have walking, standing again. It recognizes sitting, and it recognizes pain as well. Back to Prashant.
So before finalizing our CNN LSTM model, we experimented with different features and network architectures. So first, let's go through the different features that we experimented with. So initially, we took only two-dimensional feature vector, which is x and y coordinates only, and we thought that this would be enough to account for all the movements. But since this didn't give good results, we included the z-axis coordinates as well. But again, we had few problems during transition, so we thought that we'll go ahead and take some scale invariant and motion sensitive features, and we normalize those key points using hip center as the mean and the farthest key point from hip center as the standard deviation. And we took 17 pairs of those key points, and those key points basically gave few errors during transition. So we went ahead and calculated more distances and finally added 19 distances along with those 33 key points that totaled up to 118 features. And one of the architectures that we experimented with is LSTM with only 2 layers. And during training, as you can see that it did give good results, but during validation, we found out that it is quite inconsistent during the activity, which looked quite similar, like standing, walking, or sleeping and falling. And it also was not too generalized for different heights and different transitions. So it gave a low generalization result as well. So now Aditya will take you through a different architecture.
Yeah, so out of other architecture, so this is also one other architecture that we tried out, which has 3 LSTM layers followed by a couple of dense layers. So this model also had given good training accuracy, but we had numerous problems such as inconsistencies during transitions and a higher rate of misclassification, and hence we decided to go with the CNN LSTM model. Yeah, so let me just quickly give you the demo. Yeah, so I hope you can see my screen. So we have developed a simple UI here, a simple web app where we have given an option to choose a video. So let me quickly just choose a video and I hit submit. So now the video gets processed, and let's just wait for a couple of frames to be processed. So we have a simple video player here and a couple of small sub menu which shows activity and their corresponding probability. So as you can see, though our model was mostly trained on simulated data, it worked quite well even on real world data. We have color coded the activities. So normal activities would be in green and abnormal would be in red. As you can see, we acted out here itself so that we could, sort of generalize how a patient would be in a real world scenario. And here, as you can see, during walking, it in fact shows as walking with the highest probability. We have also integrated a calling feature, as in as a person experiences sort of pain for consecutive 40 frames, we have initiated a call feature as well. Yeah, let's just wait for this. And as you can see, the inconsistencies mostly occur during transitions of activity, which we actually sort of anticipated. So So as you can see, the person is actually experiencing pain, and I get a call directly onto my phone. So this message. Yeah. So this.
Press any key to execute your code. Patient in room number 111 needs assistance. Please attend to the patient immediately.
Yeah, so the message basically says to attend to the patient immediately. So that's a sort of feature that we implemented. And so when I actually hit pause, I get an option to download a PDF. So this is the final report that maybe a healthcare worker would be getting on all the different activities. Yeah, so okay, let me quickly go back to my screen. Yeah. So this was actually the model generated report. We actually ran the full video, and this was the final report that it generated. And here is a ground truth where we manually calculated all the duration of each activity. And as you can see, there are very minor inconsistencies except for pain, which mainly occurred during the transition of the activity. So in conclusion, we would say that our model was successfully able to predict most of abnormal activities such as pain, cough, and falling, but there were inconsistencies during walking and standing, which is sort of expected because the skeletal position mostly remains almost same during walking and standing, which we sort of anticipated. And the most of the misclassification that has occurred are during activity transition. So in future work, we can plan on adding more human activities for normal and abnormal activities. And we could maybe introduce a third person detection model so that the problem would mainly boil down to static type activity and movement-based activity. So some of the learnings are we got to learn a lot on Unity 3D animations, etc. And we got to know on data engineering and feature extraction on which features to use, what type of features to use, and what features mostly impact the model. And we experimented with multiple types of LSTM, bidirectional GRUs, and finally CNN and LSTM. So our mostly, I mean, the final takeaway for this is it's mostly not about quantity of the data that matters, rather the quality of the data that matters. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know if we have any questions.
Cool. This is a very fancy and very good presentation. Before I ask questions, I'd like to see if the audience have any questions. Questions? No? No questions? Cool. So I think this is a very interesting application, and this is a very, very good demo, and really shows that the system works, and it's an end-to-end system. It's also a very smart idea to use Unity 3D to generate simulated data. I think there is also a trend in terms of training on simulated data and using on the real data. I was going to ask how well your model performed in real data, but I guess you already showed that it works pretty well. So that's also good. My question is, when you're generating the Unity 3D simulation data, how diverse is the generated data is? So do you have to like encode some kind of randomness in order for the system to generate different data? Or would it always like lead to the same sequence of simulated data?
No, so we made the character animate. So we had multiple simulation of same type. For example, walking, we had multiple styles of walking. And we have written a small script which wherein the camera, in fact, moves around the camera, zooms in, zooms out, so that we have different, we sort of can augment the data as well. And change the position of the person as well. So we sort of introduced all sort of augmentation that we could think of.
I see. But in terms of walking style, does Unity 3D support like different kind of walking style, or do you have to like program it into it as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of walking, we obviously do not know how to animate the character. So Mixamo from Adobe provides us the animation. So it's mostly used for gaming sites, gaming libraries. So where we can just type walking and we get bunch of different walking styles. So that's how we sort of imported different walking styles, and the angle at which we capture different simulations where we actually wrote a simple script to capture different angles, and yeah.
I see, and yeah. So another question is in terms of the transition, you mentioned that in most error, most misclassification actually happen during the transition of actions. But I see some of the misclassification actually make sense, right? Well, for example, one of the example where you the person is walking and then he went on to sit on the chair, and the transition, the few frames during the transition, it actually looks very much like it's coughing, right? So it's kind of makes sense to make that. But I guess in the future it will be interesting to let the model know that this is actually a transition instead of the patient that's actually coughing.
Right. Yeah, we actually thought of maintaining a like sort of a transition buffer wherein the model would predict only maybe once every certain number of frames, so that even during transition this error sort of do not occur. So the transition generally maybe we could say like for 2 seconds a transition could happen. So we would maybe maintain some sort of interval wherein it doesn't predict for this sort of small 2 seconds or 60 frames.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we have a question from the audience on the chat room. So the question from Catherine is, how do you Unity determine the skeletal position for pen, since pen is not necessarily shown physically on the body?
So basically, we just downloaded the animations of different kind of pain that a person can have, right? So basically, if you see, the pain is mostly on cuff, and if a person is lying or something like he goes into a seizure. So we manually manually give labels to each of these animations that, okay, this is for pain and this is for a seizure or a cuff. And based on the skeletal points that the media pipe give, these class labels are given. So we pre-process the data in a way that we pass each frame of these pain or a seizure to the media pipe. And as we are collecting the key points, we are also telling that, okay, what was the class label for this frame? So this is how the data is collected. And then during the training of the model, we pass along the key points as well as the labels to the model for final training